Mike Waters, welcome to the show, my man.
Mike, it's good to talk to you again. I'm glad you had me on your show here. It was nice to receive the invitation and that you're not holding that grade against me.
Hey, Mike. What's going on? It's Jacob.
Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. And I should add, Mike got a very good grade in the class.
I'm sure he did.
Yes.
All right. Well, we were talking about my academic grades. We got some basketball grades possibly to hand out. But starting off simple, I got this feeling going into the press day on Friday. Maybe you did as well. Just the overall feeling of this team just felt so much more relaxed than in past years. Is that what you also were picking up from some of these players?
Oh, I don't know. I think for some of them, it was a sense of excitement because you had a bunch of players that are new to the program, and so this was an experience new to them. J.J. Starling, Chance Westry, Kyle Cuff, Naheem McLeod, all coming in through the transfer portal. So, it's kind of exciting when it's your first media day. Yeah, I remember last year's media day kind of having similar, feeling when all six of the freshmen were there. And then, now they're all six are back. And I think sometimes you get a more relaxed atmosphere with guys when they know what to expect and they kind of know what media day's about, and they're not uptight and they are a little looser. And I definitely detected that yesterday, I almost said yesterday, last Friday. Guys like Quiddy or Copeland, I mean, he loves that stuff. He was having a blast at media day. He loves to talk. He's an outgoing guy. The other thing too, if you want to compare the fact that it was Adrian Autry's first ever, media day as the head coach. And, for the previous 47 years, it was Jim Boeheim. Is there a difference there? Yeah, I think there's a difference. Jim Boeheim, because of how long he'd been around and because of his success and everything else, it's like he would kind of almost dominate media day in a way because you hung on every word he said and you never knew what he was going to say. You never knew if he was going to tell you that the Big Ten sucked, or if he would criticize a new rule. And because with his position in the game, he could do that. If he wanted to take a shot at the NCAA over a new rule or something else going on in the game, he would. Adrian Autry is the first-year head coach, is probably going to keep things a little closer to the vest. Maybe not, go out there and put himself out on a limb with a lot of really strong opinions about something. So, I think that was a big difference the other day too. But I don't know. To me, I'm always excited when media day rolls around because it means the season's right around the corner and you start to really, get excited about the prospects for another season.
You touched on the class of last year, the 6 freshmen who are now sophomores, who Coach Boeheim called one of his best classes of all time. Now that all 6 of them are back, what's the feeling with that group? It seems like it's at least from my side, it seems like they're a very tight-knit group. They're all very excited to be back here. What did you see?
Yeah, they are a tight-knit group. You can tell. I mean, when you have 6 kids come in as freshmen and they're all thrown into the fire, they're going to bond. Some played, some didn't. Some of the guys that, didn't get a lot of playing time, they're bonding because their experiences are the same. And with 6 people, you're bound to become friends with somebody. Maybe not all 5, but at least somebody. But they do seem like a group that gets along well together. I always feel bad about kids that come in and they're a class of one. Benny Williams a couple years ago, Will Patterson this year, is the only scholarship freshman. That's always a little awkward for a kid. But, with the kids from last year's recruiting class who are now sophomores, you're hoping that with a year experience, 2 of them were starters a year ago, Chris Bell and Judah Mintz. You're hoping that they build on that experience. A couple other guys got a significant amount of playing time as freshmen. They weren't full-time starters, but Justin Taylor and Malik Brown had a lot of playing time. They each had, there's a couple of starts each. I think Malik Brown had a few more than did Justin Taylor. So, again, they have something to build upon, and you're hoping you see that. Sometimes it takes a while. Case in point, Benny Williams last year as a sophomore in his first year as a starter. He had good days and he had bad. He had his struggles. I would hope that some of these kids, because they did get more playing time as freshmen than did Benny, that they'll be better positioned to make that next step. You really want to see guys like Chris Bell, Justin Taylor, and Malik Brown really come back and show some improvement, because they're going to be counted on. They're going to be needed this year. With Joe Girard and Jesse Edwards gone, these are the guys that are going to have to step in and fill some significant roles.
We're talking to Syracuse.com's Mike Waters, live on ESPN Syracuse. So, Mike, as you're talking about experience, I feel like the two words that everyone always thinks about with college basketball is March Madness. What do we think about? Of course, the last 2 years have been disappointing. What do we think about this year, 2024 March Madness?
I think there's a really good chance of this team making the postseason. I know nationally they're definitely flying under the radar right now, whether you're looking at somebody's top, the AP top 25 came out. I did not expect them to be in that, and they're not. That's fine. But, a lot of other places have, like a top 40 or whatever, and they're not really appearing there either. Ken Pomeroy came out with his preseason computations, and they're at 105. A lot of that, you start off with where they were last year. I think a lot of that goes into it. So, maybe that's to be expected, but I think this team has potential. Now, I don't love the early season schedule. I think it's brutal. You're going to go out to Hawaii, and your first game's against a nationally ranked Tennessee team. Your second game is guaranteed to be against another nationally ranked team, whether it's Purdue or Gonzaga. You're going to play Oregon. You're going to play LSU at Georgetown. Your ACC game for early December is on the road as well at Virginia. So that's really tough. So this team's going to have to fight its way through this, try to pick off a win or two where it can in those games, and just keep their confidence about them. Don't lose confidence in yourself. Get to New Year's Eve or thereabouts, and then see where the conference slate takes you. Because when I look around the ACC, the AP poll came out today. There's only 3 ACC teams in the top 25, and I really don't know how good North Carolina is going to be. North Carolina was one of those 3 ranked ACC teams. They had a heavy turnover. So we'll see about that. I think Syracuse could do very well in the ACC and at least put themselves in position where they're fighting for an NCAA tournament bid towards the end of the season. But a lot of that could come down to how well they did early in the year, which is why you're going to have to find a way to win at least 2 or 3 of these games against your major conference opponents before Christmas.
So speaking of schedule, is there a certain game you would point to and being like, this game is their test? If it's sort of like a sink, or like it's a swimmer or sink. Will they, if they can win this, then they're gonna be a good year?
Is it being too flippant to say Colgate?
The way the last 2 years, not at all.
I know you were expecting one of the other big name games, but really, it's the games in the past 2 years in the non-conference where they've lost to a Bryant or lost to Colgate, and those are the games that just really cut down your chances of making the NCAA tournament. You can't suffer those quote-unquote bad losses. And, some would argue that a loss to Colgate isn't all that bad. They've been very good. They've been winning the Patriot League and all that. But they're not a top 100 RPI or net ranking type team, and you're playing them at home. So it's a quad 3 loss at best. You can't afford those, especially not in years when you also don't take down one of your big non-conference games, and you're totally lacking in quad 1 wins in the non-conference. You can't suffer bad. So yeah, Colgate's important. I don't know that the trip to Hawaii has a game that's a must-win or can't afford to lose type game. You're going to be playing highly ranked teams in the first 2 rounds. Those aren't the type of losses, if you do lose them, that are going to crush your hopes. On the other hand, if you do win one, wow, you really, that's one of the ones where you march down to the varsity and turn a pennant upside down. If it was football season, that'd be great. I think the game I'm actually looking at is Oregon on a neutral court in South Dakota. for some unknown reason. But because it's a neutral court game and it's against a team that's not in the top 25 right now, but could be, they're going to be at the top of the Pac-12 most of the season. You know, it's a recognizable name team from a power conference. If you can win a neutral court game, that's going to carry some significance all through the season. You know, not only in terms of just whether it's quad 1 or quad 2, but, you know, when the committee just looks at games and just the name of the team even is going to say, like, oh, they have a neutral court win over Oregon. That would be pretty good. And then I think you have to beat LSU at home, and LSU right now is in the top 50 of Ken Pomeroy's, you know, preseason rankings. Take it for what it's worth, but there they are in the top 50. You know, I think you still have to win that game, and then you got to go on the road to Georgetown. But yeah, I think I would talk about Colgate and I would talk about Oregon as two games that I'm really circling on the calendar.
Well, Mike, we will do the same with those two games. Circling back to something Coach Autry said compared to last year, he wants to use his bench a lot more. He sees using really 7 or 8 guys every night. What do you make of that, and who do you think out of the bench could really make the biggest impact this season?
When I hear Adrian Autry talk about using his bench more, I think it tells me a couple things. One, it's alluding to the fact that he wants to play more man-to-man. I think they're going to be more aggressive. They want to get after people. And if you really are going to be aggressive in getting after people, you're going to need to play your bench because guys are going to get a little, you know, tired a little quicker. And also there's the possibility that some guys are going to get into foul trouble. And if you're really going to remain aggressive, you have to have a bench that can come in and give you minutes. Like Judah Mintz can't be out there avoiding fouls, and the overall team's defense is going to stay at that high level. Judah Mintz, whoever it is, J.J. Starling, even your, you know, whoever your center is, you're going to have to be aggressive to make this type of defensive effort work. And that means don't worry about a foul or two. I mean, you want to be smart. But if you do pick up a foul, there's a guy coming in who can give the team some minutes until it's time for you to go back in. So I think that's what he's talking about. It's playing style. The other thing I think that he's alluding to is I think they're happy with their depth. I think they really do believe they've got 9 to 10 guys that can play right now. And if you saw that orange-white scrimmage the other night, you know, Chance Westry and Kyle Cuff, you know, probably the two backup guards to J.J. Starling and Judah Mintz, they look pretty good at times. Certainly better than any backup guards you've seen in a while. And I think you're going to see, you know, Malik Brown and Naheem McLeod both play some of the center position. We'll see a healthy Mooney or Hema can also get minutes there. You've got Justin Taylor and Chris Bell, whose games are very similar. They're, you know, both kind of small forward guys who shoot it really well, who could perhaps give you a little bit of time at the 2 as well. You know, they got a lot of guys who can play multiple positions, and I haven't even mentioned the Swiss Army knife, Quadir Copeland. You know, Quadir can play a lot of positions for you, and not just play the position, he can guard multiple positions. And if you're going to be playing aggressive man-to-man, and there's going to be occasions where you got to switch on the perimeter, what a weapon would it be to have a guy out there like Quadir Copeland who can go from defending the other team's shooting guard, get switched onto a small forward, and not have a problem guarding a guy who's 6'7" or so, because Quadir's 6'6". And Quadir's really athletic, moves his feet well, and was recruited as a point guard. He gets switched onto another team's point guard. He can stay with that guy too. So, yeah, I think there's a potential for a lot of depth there, and I think you'll see 8, 9 guys get regular playing time, and they could even go down to number 10 or 11, depending on that third center, whether it's Munir Hemo or Will Patterson. And I haven't even, you know, and I'm leaving Peter Carey out of this for now because he didn't play all last season because of an injury, and he didn't play the other night because of an ankle. Until I see him get out on the court and be able to, you know, avoid injury and give him time, I think we're waiting on him.
So, Mike, last question. So let me set the scene here. Syracuse down 1 second left in the game. Who's taking the shot?
Well, before we get down to the 1 second mark, I want to have the ball in the hands of either JJ or Judah. I want to have a guard with the ball who has the ability to create for both himself and others. And the big thing is with Judah, I hope that now as a sophomore, he makes some better decisions in that moment. Last year there were a few games where he either forced a shot or committed a turnover. We remember the game down at Miami where he really struggled late in that game. I don't think we see that this year. I think we're going to see a more veteran, experienced guard who can make good decisions coming down the stretch. And as far as who takes the shot, who gets the ball, that could be dependent on what the other team is showing you. Where's the mismatch? Who's had an advantage in that night? Because I don't think this is the type of team where you necessarily have to say it's got to go to that guy because he's far and away your best player. But it's not like back in the like the ball had to be in Lawrence Moten's hands in '94, or the ball was in Lazarus Sims's hands in '96, but it didn't necessarily end up with a shot from Lazarus. It would end up with a shot from John Wallace or Todd Bergen or Jason Sapola. I think we're kind of looking at that kind of team. The ball starts with one of the guards, and we'll see where it goes. And I think that's the kind of team that can be successful. That's the kind of team that can get a good shot. You're not forcing a shot from the one guy who's supposed to take it. I go back to last year's game in the ACC tournament against Wake Forest. Joe Girard, the game's tied, final seconds, and I don't mind Joe Girard getting that last shot, but he didn't get a good one. And I think this year's team, whether you make the shot or not, the object is get a good shot. Get somebody open, create something. I don't care if Judah Mintz goes the whole year without taking the last shot, but I guarantee you he's going to have the ball in his hands enough that he's going to create something for either a Chris Bell or a Justin Taylor or Judah Mintz.
Syracuse.com's Mike Waters, thank you so much for joining us today. And be sure to check out all his work throughout this upcoming basketball season. Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for having me on your show, guys. Hope to see you soon.